There is something on display for all these preseason games that really has rekindled a memory from my childhood, more so than I could have fathomed going into this preseason year. And I think I forget that every preseason game on NFL Network is produced, created, and done by the local commentary production team.
Yep.
Kraft Productions put together the preseason game last night on NFL Network with the McCords, Scott Zolak.
Yep.
We got another studio in Hoyer and some guy who I don't think has ever looked at the camera or knew he was on the camera, but I'm sure he's an incredible talent. Then a sideline reporter I've never heard of who's asking the tough questions.
Oh, yeah.
In tough ways. I mean, he's real close.
Oh, yeah.
With that microphone.
It's direct.
He's been around, I think he's done Boston media a long, long time, right?
Yeah.
He's like Boston media guy.
He's been the sideline reporter for the Patriots for as long as I can remember.
So you get a chance to kind of like learn about the local commentary crews who are vital to the success of the NFL. I will say that entire department in every single building, very successful for the success of the teams, you know, and the shit they're creating and making throughout the season and releasing whatever commercials and sales and everything they're doing locally. Very, very important. But when you're watching a game, and I'm not saying this about last night's game, I'm just saying in general about these preseason games, you think to yourself, wow, this is crap. You know, you think, well, some of these are really bad. And I don't know how this is how we decided to do the football, or how did this person end up on the microphone for this particular team? There are some that are incredible. Like I heard Whit, Mina, and I forget who else doing the LA Rams one, and they had Sean McVay plugged in.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, that was a great.
That was awesome.
Like I was watching it was great. Summer Crop. Last night, I'm not saying last night, I thought last night was good. I liked Hoyer's in between plays, coming in, break it down with the McCords. I enjoyed it because you can be a little bit more experimental. But I was very lucky to grow up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the greatest local commentator of all time resided. His name was Myron Cope. Myron Cope created the terrible towel. You know the terrible towel that you see in every single stadium in which the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing, or the Pittsburgh Penguins are playing, or the Pittsburgh Pirates are playing. Basically a towel that says, our city is here and I am from Pittsburgh, was created by this man right here, Myron Cope. And every time I see these local people, I always wonder, like, are they as beloved by their fans as Myron Cope was with the Pittsburgh Steelers? That dude was the voice of Pittsburgh. That dude had the opinions of Pittsburgh all flowing through his body through a microphone, and nobody will ever get a chance to know him because he passed away. Well, stress not, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest local commentator of all time is Myron Cope. Here's a highlight reel from our friends at Geek Time TV on YouTube.
Although each has his own style, one voice from Pittsburgh stands out as unique. Meet Myron Cope.
Hardball, you can't possibly make nothing out of this. You can't make nothing. I'm going to make you into buttermilk.
Let's face it, my voice is not what you think of as a broadcasting voice. It tends to cut through concrete.
That was a shovel pass, appeared to me, you know. With the old coal, throw the coal into the bin there, business.
I always try to inject humor because it is, after all, a game. That's all it is. It's not life or death.
Tony Siragusa, I am going to describe him as looking like the guy they send around to break your legs when you haven't paid your bookie. And he does. That's what he looks like.
I'm a stickler for pronouncing a name right.
Yeah.
Would you have expected Rocky Blyer to turn into Nijinsky?
It was Nijinsky.
Well, then Nijinsky was a great ballet dancer.
And I have a little fun with those too, you understand, if they lend themselves to it. I exaggerate lots of times, you know.
And they shed that guy like he was a tsetse fly. Well, he jumped so high he was at the top deck of the stadium. That play, if you'd have clocked it, you would have figured that it was a milk wagon horse running a mile or something. It took so long.
Tiger hit him. His teeth are in the third row. Well, we know his teeth aren't in the third row, so I'll exaggerate when the exaggeration is obvious to the listener. You know, when Kirkland puts a big hit on somebody, I'm feeling like exaggerating. I'm feeling good. And I think the listener gets to feel the blow.
Betcha he knocked that guy flat as a mackerel.
I heard a very prominent network analyst on television just recently, and the kid from New England, Curtis Martin, he'd run in about 3 yards for a touchdown, and it was a good, tough 3 yards. It was a hard run. And this fella described it this way. He said, Curtis did an excellent job. And what the hell kind of description is that of a good, tough 3-yard touchdown run? He did an excellent job. It's like you're listening to a biology teacher. Well, nice paper. You did an excellent job. See what I mean? Football's a passionate game.
Let's go! Let's go!
Why not exaggerate when you're making it obvious that you are?
All of a sudden, they get lit
Oh, man. Hey, rest in peace, Myron.
Miss you, Myron.
Rest in peace, Myron Cope. If you have or notice any incredible local commentary this weekend while you're watching these preseason games, please send it to us. Would love to spotlight these guys and girls who are ever doing it because honestly, Myron Cope, obviously you could tell, inspired me in the personality that I have, but also he was literally the voice of the entire city and beloved. Lucky as hell that I grew up in that era, and now we're getting to experience it every preseason.
Yeah, and I forget whether it was last season or 2 years ago, but the guy for the Minnesota Vikings. That's the only one that like pops into my brain as one of those guys.
Phenomenal job.
So good.
And last preseason, remember, it was another team that was the home team.
Yeah, bingo. And they
actually said, yeah, we actually can't get that. Sorry, we're going to go to Paul Allen and the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. Yep.
And PA on the mic, I believe, is his Twitter. So if you acknowledge, if you're watching a game this weekend and it's some crew that you have no idea who it is and you think they're good, send them in. Would love to spotlight them because that's not an easy gig.
And like Pat, like you said, like they're majority of Pittsburgh. Like whether the game was on national TV or local TV or whatever, they weren't listening to the game through the TV. Like you saw the guy in the stands wearing the earmuffs to listen to the game. Like I know my parents and and my grandfather too, like would listen to the game strictly on the radio through Myron and him and Bill Hillgrove, who I believe just retired, who was awesome as well. But like, yeah, you didn't listen to TV. Like you weren't listening to the national guys because they didn't have. You wanted to hear like the enthusiasm and the homerism of Myron, and that's kind of how the relationship was built.
Rest in peace, Myron Cope. Congrats on a hell of a career, Hillgrove. And Steigerwald was our voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I mean, so lucky. As I was watching that back, and they were showing the Steelers fans and showing Cowher go bananas, it was like football could really like ignite an entire city. I think growing up in that era right there, that is literally what I grew up in. It's like I think that's why I have such big belief in the NFL for what it can do because, man, it unifies so many people. And when you have a voice that can, kind of, I don't want to say lead, but maybe reflect all of that while also being incredibly entertaining and allowed to do every single game. It's like, what a perfect setup. And that's literally all I think of every time I hear these local
We had
people.
him and Mike Lang. So that was Mike Lang being the Penn's color guy. Those were just two of the biggest characters in local sports radio.
Yeah, so I feel like, what's that book called? The Outsiders or something?
The Outliers?
The Outliers, there it is. The Outsiders is also a book. Not
Great
about
book.
this.
S.E. Hinton.
Yeah, The Outliers, though, is about how, where you and how you grow up is a massive indicator on what you're going to end up doing.
Yep.
Like Bill Gates, obviously a super successful computer person. He grew up like a bike ride away from the only computer in the United States of America.
Bingo.
So like he had the opportunity, and that like goes on any like success story you hear. If they ever talk about the success of this particular program and talk about how we cover football, it is 1,000,000% because I grew up in Pittsburgh in the time in which I did, and it being a football town. And Myron Cope is one of the biggest pieces of that entire thing. So obviously I'm eternally grateful, but I'm not the only one.
Well, yeah, it's too bad because kids who are growing up now, or even people that are a little bit younger than us, like this isn't a thing anymore. Like when I watch Iowa games, I still listen to Gary Dolphin, and now this year it'll be Pat Anger with him too. But like that was a massive part of it, like everyone you knew was doing that. Like you weren't watching the local or whatever crew ESPN2 was putting on. Like it was always like Diggs was saying, like you want the people who know the team well because like that's how you connect with them. And I feel like that is just like a thing that doesn't happen anymore. Like I don't know how many people watch games on Sundays and are listening to the local radio call while watching the game as opposed to listening to Romo and
I don't even know how
Nance
possible it
whoever.
is to get it.
Yeah,
exactly.
legit.
Like figuring out how to get it would potentially be a thing.
That is
You
the
can
one.
toss it on your computer most of the time.
That is the one thing that the NFL app is good about is like when
NFL Plus?
Yeah, NFL Plus. Like if you go on there, you can still get the local broadcasts of every single team.
Yeah, it is. I hope it is also something that they still take very seriously. Like Myron Cope was very, you could tell proud that he was who he was.
Yeah.
And he was representing who he was. But he also knew that like the things he said was also guiding thoughts and opinions of the fans. Things you should think about. When you talk about Kirkland hitting them so hard, it's like you automatically think of that defense in the Steel Curtain, and it's like, well, Myron Cope was a part of building that entire brand.
Yeah.
You know, like he was a part of it all. And then Cower with the chin out running. It was like a perfect match.
Yeah, perfect marriage of the voice and the team itself.
Nick, they don't make them like Myron Cope anymore. Every once in a while, he'd have a couple drinks, hop behind the wheel. Shouldn't have done it.
Different time.
Shouldn't have done it. We all agree.
Society's fault.
But Nick, we were lucky to grow up in that era.
Very lucky, and as you guys were mentioning, it's definitely a lost art. I know Connor, the Boston Bruins, just lost their play-by-play guy, Jack Edwards, and he was considered by most to be the biggest homer in the league, but I know Bruins fans loved him for that very reason. The passion, the energy he brought to the broadcast just sucked everyone in.
I love Myron Cope there giving that interview, and I had not seen that interview. Maybe I had, but I had forgotten about it. Him going, yeah, I exaggerate a little bit. He's just a biology baby.
They know his teeth aren't in the third row.
And I think that is also like a part of the convo with how I don't want to say we're the only ones, but we view like sports are a celebration of fun. Like, you know, they shouldn't be covered as if they are politics or as if they are medicine or as if they are surgery or as if they are something else. That certainly has a place. Let's not get crazy. The details and the back and all that. But whenever you lose any pizzazz or sauce, whenever you're talking about sports, which are supposed to be that, I think you got it wrong. And I can't wait to hear all the local crews. If you hear somebody you like, let us know. We will certainly spotlight them next week.